15 minutes.
Okay, fantastic. I'm just going to ask Doug who this is. So that on the left is Nick Spivak. So we got to watch Nick play his Cadillac variant against Josh earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Nick pulled the win out, so Nick's probably playing one of the winning decks, and I believe he's playing Doug Sims.
Nick Spivak played against Josh, right? Yeah, Nick won against Josh.
Yep, Nick won on camera against Josh.
Round 7, so we have Nick versus Ty Bertrand.
Oh, interesting. This is great. Are we recording?
Yep, we're recording.
Awesome. I'm really excited about this. Ty is absolutely one of the best players in the game. Ty Bertrand is one of the guys that always comes out of the gate with something interesting. He's always figuring out combinations or strategies that haven't been played. I think more than any other player, Ty and his father Howard send me the most messages about card interactions to try to figure out. They really like to bring something new to an event that hasn't been seen before. So there's a certain amount of deduction that has to be done by their opponents during the tournament. Now, I don't know what he's playing, but I see the mission set, the Crossing, being played by Ty, and I do see the Beyonder. Now, this is a really uncommon deck for Ty. Ty generally goes for... I've never seen him play a Beyonder deck or a KO deck, but he is part of the Masters, and he did use his Dracula deck. So Ty's got the Triskelion. Basically that's 221 Baker Street. It's then one of the new locations from the Any Heroes Essential pack. What it says is anytime a character plays a card that allows you to look or sort through opponent's hand or deck, you can choose one of those cards to discard. And he's also playing Leader, which I'm so excited about. I have wanted to play Leader in a deck for so long, and Leader has a fantastic Masters of Evil card that I believe it reveals... Now I've got to look it up because I want to make sure I get it right. But it's a spying card that works great with Triskelion. Give me 1 second to look it up, but I believe it gets all non-1 per decks and activators in a player's hand. So when that goes off, it's either going to need to be negated or it's going to get a fantastic card every time. So give me one moment here.
He takes one of the cards?
So Ty's home base is essentially anytime Ty plays a special card or plays a card that allows him to look at cards from an opponent's hand or deck, he's allowed to then choose one to discard. So that's his entire home base. That's his strategy. So opponent must reveal all non-OPD cards and all activators from hand. So every time he resolves one of those with Leader, he's going to get to choose one of them to discard. And he immediately places one. So Nick's going to have to read this card because no one plays Leader. Now Nick sort of sat back with a look on his face, and then Ty tapped the Triskelion. So I think Nick's immediately figuring out what's going on here.
But Joe, you said that the Leader allows to look at what Nick's hand has, right?
Yep.
But does he get to take one of the cards?
He gets to make him discard one. Normally, that card would just let him look at things. So, on their own, not a powerful card. You would never see that in play on a deck. But if you use that home base, the one that Ty's using, he's using an older version of it that was a fan-made one. But the one that was released officially from BMG, that's based on, it's 221 Baker Street, based on Sherlock Holmes's apartment, has the same exact function. Playing that as your home base means you can't do... So the one Nick is playing allows him to bring 3 training cards to the deck that he can use to get better offense or defense. Ty's choosing to use this spying strategy And since he's playing Beyonder, Doctor Strange also has one that allows him to look at all specials in hand. So anytime Ty resolves one of those two cards, he's going to see a bunch of cards in Nick's hand, get that information, and then choose the best one to make him discard. And so that's kind of the entire strategy of what Ty's deck is going to be doing. It's going to be trying to cherry pick out those best cards. Now he's also playing X World, and I can't off the top of my head remember if anyone has a good spying card. So X World has Storm, Angel, Iceman, Havoc, Goblin Queen, and Beast, and I don't remember any of them having a spying card. So he may only be getting that effect from Leader and Doctor Strange. But it's also an effect you don't want to lean into it too much. Ty is one of the people that's been playing this constantly. I think he's the only one that's won a tournament with that home base. He plays it very effectively as an extra. He doesn't play it as his, he doesn't try to overuse it. Just when it hits, it's devastating, and he makes sure he has enough of his foundational cards to keep playing. Definitely, if anyone has any questions about these mechanics, post them. They'll be brought to me, and I can answer them. So we are experiencing a little technical difficulty. You'll notice the timer at the top of the screen is just on a different page. We're not going to have that timer displayed till we get that figured out, but we'll update you on the time as we go. So Ty bets 2. Nick is playing that same version of the Cadillac that we saw earlier. The one playing the battle site. So Ty bets 2, doesn't go too hard. Ty was only able to place 4 cards, but Nick was only able to place 4 cards. So Ty ends up with 2 venture in the completed pile and doesn't really give anything up. Nick is able to get that 4 intellect on the Star Jammers. Ty draws an event. Anyone with an inherent ability gets to heal a hit, but no one had a hit yet, so it's essentially just a card with no effect. Ty does get to redraw for it. Ty gets 2 dupes. Doesn't look like Nick's got any dupes, so Nick is going to have a 2-card advantage on Ty going into this second hand. This is a great match of someone who knows their deck inside and out. Like we said last time when Nick pulled out the victory against Josh, Nick has just played this Cadillac deck so much. I think more than any other person with any other deck, this is, except maybe Dave McMillan with his Deadpool deck, Nick has just played this so he knows he knows the odds, he can count the cards constantly. He's just got such a ingrained idea of what he's going to get. Now, he didn't play it with Muir Island, so this is the first time he's doing that. So there's a little bit of an X factor, but that deck experience is going up against Ty, who just, I don't know what the term for it is in Overpower, but as I would say in boxing, Ty is one of, I'd say pound for pound, one of the most creative in the moment players. Ty's also a very talented poker player, calculating odds on the spot, figuring out the best lines to take. Ty is one of my favorite opponents to play, and we've had a very, very fun back and forth in both Overpower and poker. We played in a big poker tournament when I was in Canada about 6 months ago, and I think Ty's gotten the better of me overall, but we've had a lot of great back and forths in the Swiss. So Nick's got that 4 from Star Jammers, that single attack. He doesn't seem to have energy. He's got 2 energy cards in hand, so we know he can make that attack, but he hasn't revealed that to Ty yet. So he may want to keep those in hand, which he does. So he may try to sneak that over the top. If Ty gives him an opening, he's going to try to throw that 4 with the 7 or the 8, get it above a 9 or less avoid. All right, so if Nick doesn't have a negate right here, he's got to reveal all his power cards, all his activators, anything that's not a 1 per deck. You'll see he's got a Professor X and 2 power cards. I think you're going to see Ty make him discard the 8 here and just get rid of it. And now Ty knows that he can throw that big single attack. And Nick's kind of Nick's taking the brunt side of playing against a strategy that he hasn't seen before. So Nick's really going to have to try to deduce in the moment how to deal with this leader. I'm so excited to see Leader being played. I've been wanting to build a deck with Leader since the Masters of Evil cards came out, specifically to do this mechanic, and I just hadn't found one yet that works. Ty doing this with Beyonder is so he can do the spying cards from Doctor Strange in the back. Absolutely, what a great way to do it. So it looks
Joe,
like
that's a
Nick's gonna.
promo card, right? Underneath leader?
Yeah, that is not a promo card. It's that is one of the so all of the Any Power cards from the Any Heroes Essential Pack were sketches for different gods that we didn't use. So that is the 7 Any Power card, but that's from the Any Heroes Essential Pack. Looks like Keith's trying to sign on right now, so we're gonna have somebody jump on with him and get him signed in. And as soon as he gets all set up on the tech, we're gonna have a co-host here. So Nick is doing exactly what the Cadillac does. He's trying to just create that shell and just pressure him with the teamworks. And I think you're going to see that's what we're going to see here is Ty's playing a little bit more of a control game. He's going to spy. He's going to make him drop his best cards. And Nick's just going to try to overwhelm him with individual hits that create KO pressure. Taking that 5 at this point is really tough. But Ty is running Teamworks too, so we're seeing him fire one right back. As we saw in the last match, this can be the weakness of the Cadillac. You really want to make the Cadillac fight early. We've got the timer back up, 31 minutes. So the thing with the Cadillac, the common misconception, they are going to try to place out and they're going to try to run until they get that defensive shell. They want to have the 9 or less on spawn. They want to have the negate. They want to have the 6 or less, and they want to have one of their activators or any hero defenses. So they feel comfortable just throwing all of their power cards offensively. And the way you get around that is you have to fight the early fights against them, and you have to create that pressure where if they're placing all their power cards, you're pressuring the character that doesn't have the ones that can be used defensively. Both of these players know their decks and they're fantastic. Ty's taking exactly the line he needs to against this deck. Just pressuring the Star Jammers. We haven't seen any 1-per-decks for the Star Jammers. If you can pressure the Star Jammers, you can either make Nick have to run, which he's doing now. Nick knows he doesn't have the defense, so he doesn't want to take any more damage on the Jammers than that. And that's going to allow Ty to have some breathing room with the Venture later on. And I think you'll notice Nick will leave that placing slot for the Jammers open on the Spartan training ground. I think you're going to see that draw 3 in his hand go down. So Nick's got some heat. Nick's got another playable Teamwork. He's got power cards to fuel it. He's got a couple of good activators, and he's got his draw 3. So I haven't got a good look at what Ty has, but Nick has got a fantastic hand. Ty places a spell of protection. Ty gets an ally out. So far, the ally is unplayable with what we've seen. But I'm guessing he can play it, or he would have either kept it in hand or placed it to Beyonder, who could play it. So Ty only has 6 placed cards to Nick's 10. So Ty is definitely in a huge placing deficit, but he's got a huge Venture lead. Now Ty may be just drawing activators that he's unable to place. I see that he's got a Storm activator in hand. I think he's got what is another Spy card from Leader. What he may try to do here is snake out another Spy so he can see exactly what's in Nick's hand, but Nick has got enough of an advantage. We might see a big bet here from Nick. Nick does not have a negate placed. He does not have a negate in hand, and Muir Island does not have a negate on any of its 6 characters. So Ty doesn't know this, but Nick cannot negate any of Tyler's spying effects. They will all go through. Yeah, he is holding one of those Leader cards, so we can count on Ty to fire that off as the first card and just get a full view of what's in Nick's hand. Nope, Nick's not even going to fight it. So Nick just. Oh no, that wasn't the card. So that card is very clever of Ty. That card avoids. I believe it's a strength or intellect attack. Whichever one it avoids, it's power type focus, but it allows leader to then draw a card. And so he was playing. He was keeping it in hand, knowing that leader is going to be the target. Ty's drawing a rough hand here. He's got 3 dupes. It looks like Nick only has 2, and Ty was already down some on card advantage, so Ty's up about 5, or Nick is up about 5 cards on Tyler. Even though Tyler's got a dramatic venture lead, this is not the situation you want to be in against the Cadillac. This is what the Cadillac does. You know, this is what we saw with Phil Miller's comeback. Nick is just going to have a fully placed out team. If he had one more power card, he could put it on the jammers. He's also got the 11 in his hand, so Ty's going to go 1, but I think we might see Ty actually stay in this and try to eat through a little bit of his placing advantage. So Ty's definitely on the defensive. You know, Tyler really needs to figure out a way to get out from under this massive placing advantage that Nick has generated. All right. Nick is starting off with that poke. So I've said this before. What I love about Overpower, the way it's played in hands, it's really got a boxing mentality to it, where these little 2s and 3s that are thrown out early, these are really your jabs. You're not looking to make the knockout with that 3. You're just looking to feel your opponent out. Nick uses one of his Spartan training ground cards for exactly what it's for. He bumps up his 1, makes it a 5, and that gives him the ability to block the 3. And then Ty is going to play the spy card. And this is what you love to see. Those spying cards historically were some of the worst cards in Overpower. Now, simply getting to discard 1 card when you play it, they've become a must and negate card. They went from a card that did not see a deck to a card that you see a Cadillac deck negating. And I really think that's when you see game design done right. Nick is attacking aggressively. So Nick throws a string and immediately fires off that 11. I think Nick is looking to just play from his hand. He really wants to make Tyler have to run, and he wants to just lean on that placing advantage. And that's exactly what he's done. So Tyler had to use his full avoid out of his battle site, which is premier defense card, and he had to run, and he really didn't make up any headway. Nick is going into this hand with a 4 card advantage. They both had 1 duplicate, so Nick didn't make any. Oh no! So now it's 1. So now he's got a 3 card advantage. We'll see. Tyler's going to make a little bit of a placement here. The only thing keeping Tyler in this game, he got so far ahead on that early venture that he's slowly being able to place cards to come back. Where, you know, unless Keith draws another teamwork, Keith pretty much doesn't have a usable placing slot. So Keith's not going to be able to place. I keep saying Keith. Sorry, Keith's jumping on
Nick.
to commentate.
Yeah.
Nick is not going to be able to place any more cards. Oh, I take that back. Nick has got some allies, so Nick is going to be able to place one of those allies. We've already seen the aspect card go by, so we know that the aspect slot on Spartan Training Ground is going to be a dead placing slot for the rest of the game. So once Nick places another ally, and actually Nick does have the second power card placing slot on the Star Jammers, so but he's passed. He's decided to not place. Tyler has put down enough cards to start to neutralize that placing advantage. So Nick is going into the next hand with 1 more card play still, but Nick does have a draw 3 as one of those cards. The cursed card, we always talk about it. Tyler drew his card off Nick's bet 3, and again, it was the Spell of Protection from Doctor Strange. Don't know what it is about that card, but it always dupes. All right. These guys are doing a little calculating. Ty has only bet 1. Nick has started to get a little more aggressive and go back for the 3. Nick is going to be starting the play. Tyler conceded, so Nick gets to play first. I think you're probably going to see Nick try to get that finite power in his hand out on the Beyonder and shut down his offensive abilities, or at least pull another Premier Defense card from Tyler's battle site, or a negate. I think what we're seeing here now is Nick knows that the leader can avoid a fighting and draw, strength icon and draw, and so I think he's nervous that Tyler's going to have that card in his hand, and he had already started attacking leader. So this is again one of those great situations where when someone figures out a good use for a character that's never been played, you make that mistake, and then you have to deduce what's going on in the moment. All right, everybody. I'd like to make a great introduction here. For those of you who don't know, Keith Bursack, former #1 Overpower player in the 90s, has just jumped on the stream. Keith, why don't you say hi and introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. Keith Bursack. Good to see everybody. Sorry I'm not able to be there. I got stuck with some prior obligations here in New Jersey. So that's unfortunately why I wasn't able to make it out to Ohio.
So Keith, for a stretch in the 90s, was the #1 ranked Overpower player. He's also, if you remember Phil Keffer telling the story about who he used to speak to when he called the 800 number in round 1, this is that Keith Bursack. Keith, Phil Keffer was telling the story about how he went to like a nationals with you or a big tournament with you when he was
it was the nationals that one year. Where Aaron Shanky came in second, Sherry Briggs came in first, I came in third, Marcel came in fourth. That was that year. I think that was 97, but I am not 100% sure about the year.
So you're just coming into this game. We've got a really interesting back and forth. So we've got Tyler playing a 221 Baker Street home base deck. He's using an old fan version of it, but essentially that's a home base that's available in the Any Heroes Essential pack. He's really doing a spying strategy. If you remember the leaders card, he's allowed to, if leader's spy card goes off, it looks at any non-1 per decks and any activators. So he's using that in the Doctor Strange spies from the reserve. Oh, so that's a great card. So he just avoided an attack with a strength icon, exactly what Nick was afraid of when he was poking, and then he was able to draw a card off it. That's what that card is on top of his dead pile. Ty still takes the opportunity and just concedes at that point. So Nick is playing a variation of his Cadillac deck. So he's using Mirror Island and he's using the Spartan Training Ground. Ty took a pretty commanding lead on Venture early. Nick sort of played passively until he got a pretty significant placing advantage, and now Ty's been doing a lot of bet 1 and concedes, and we've sort of seen everybody build up till I think we're pretty much even at this point on cards, and Ty's got 9 cards placed to it's 9-9 now. Nick does have the draw 3 placed, and Ty just dropped 2 discards. But that's what you're jumping into, Keith. I think we've got a pretty even match again here of Cadillac versus a deck with some spying cards.
I see that Ty went with the Beyonder deck.
Yep, and we haven't seen an event yet, but he is playing the Crossing. I think it's safe to assume there's going to be a KO coming. And I think Tyler was probably really hoping to see that event a lot earlier than now, because that KO event, both players have to KO a character, and it's so devastating against Nick's deck. Oh, now I just realized something. So this is fascinating. Did you see which 1 per deck he played off his battle site on the leader? Do you see that under the leader, Keith?
I'm looking. Is that the one that raises some of his stats to the 7s? I can't really see
So
it.
he's playing the Resurrection card off Goblin Queen. So now if Tyler draws his KO event, he can choose leader to KO. that card will get discarded and a leader will get resurrected in reserve. But the brilliance of that deck design is I'm assuming he's not playing more than 1/1 per deck for leader. So even if leader's in reserve, Beyonder can still play all his non-1 per decks. So he's essentially created a scenario where one event can kill one of Nick's characters and it will have literally zero effect on his deck at all. I've never seen that. That is a brilliant play by Ty.
A very inventive use of that special.
That's amazing. I have to say, I think what you're watching right here, if you're watching this deck, is a new meta. KO decks with the Beyonder were already a popular deck. And if Ty's just innovated a way that the KO doesn't affect you literally at all, I think you're going to see X World start to show up in a lot more KO decks. I have to say, I love this deck design from. I absolutely love this deck design from Tyler.
Heath, there's been some very interesting plays throughout the various matches. One with the Juggernaut, X babies that wouldn't die. It's going to be really fun to go and do the recap.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing and hearing that.
So Keith, we got to see a play. Phil Miller was playing the Juggernaut on the front line, and Phil Kepfer and I were sort of not really sure why he would do that. Like we figured he had a play, and he ended up. I think the big play that turned the game around. He played Rays against Marcel, got 3 teamworks and all 3 of his basic universes off the armory.
Wow, crazy strong against the armory.
Keith, are you you're a little quiet on my headphones. Do you see the gear icon in the bottom of the list of channels? Do you want to see if you can go turn your output up a little bit?
Sure, Ryan and I were working on that.
No, we were. We also had to move his mic a little bit, so if he moves it closer, I think you'll hear him better because I hear him loud.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, is that better?
Yeah, that sounds good. All right, so
good.
Ty's still doing his thing. So Ty's playing the Eye of Agamotto from Beyonder. He wants to look at any specials in Nick's hand. Nick's asking questions about it. So this is a brutal development. So Tyler now has the knowledge of knowing that both Scarlet Witch and Starjammers have a avoid a numerical attack. So now he knows he just has to not attack Scarlet Witch, and that's a completely dead card.
I think we were talking about my connectivity. I know that he also did play this as part of the Doctor Strange, the 2 additionals. That the Eye of Agamotto was made as part of that, which is a great use of that chain too.
Absolutely. I love that. I love playing chains that eat up a few of their cards and then getting the spy card. One of the toughest parts, I think, of the 221 Baker Street is when you don't have the KO pressure with them. So you'll notice that Ty is playing a decent amount of allies to try to get those small numerical attacks out that force them to use power card defense and then still spy. Nick is such a great experienced player. I keep saying with this deck, but it's I can almost see the stress in his mannerisms as he's trying to figure out this completely wacky deck that Tyler's come up with. So that card could also be devastating. So Tyler has to discard every card in his hand with an intellect icon. Nick has to discard every card placed or in hand with an intellect icon. So that's going to get both of his teamworks and a Beyonder from his hand and a training card.
Luckily for Nick, that's the old Scarlet Witch multi-power doesn't have the intellect icon.
That is the one weakness to that version. And there's 4 versions of that, one in every power type. In the intellect one, there's way more cards without the intellect icon. Now, I will say one interesting thing about the meta, Keith, that I could see happening. If Tyler was to start winning with this deck a lot, do you think you would start seeing people playing multi-power power cards from the 3 grid days just to avoid having that intellect icon on there?
Yeah, I think if they didn't need intellect for one of their icons or for the follow ups, yeah, it would be a smart thing to avoid, and you can. That's the end of the leader.
So leaders died, but he's keeping that. He's pointing at that card, letting Nick know. I'm not sure what the exact timing on that card is, but when it happens, leader is going to be resurrected, and I think it just happens right now. So
Yeah, he put him in. He looked like he kind of put him in reserve.
I'm going to pull that card out because I want to read the exact text on that. So
I remember you mentioned, Joe, that when leader does get resurrected, he gets put in reserve automatically.
he does. It's just a question of if he goes there now, Nick can actually choose which one comes up. So the text on that card is play during battle on your turn after Goblin Queen is KO'd. Discard this special to move Goblin Queen from the defeated character's pile to reserve. Play as normal. So they're probably asking for a ruling. It looks like they're talking to a judge. But Ty on his turn discarded it, which means Ty's going to be able to choose to bring the leader up as the main character. So this is even better than I thought it was when I was explaining it before. Ty is now going to have leader come up, and he's still protecting that 8 rank grid in the back. For those who don't know how Beyonder works, the Beyonder has a special grid that only reflects the characters that are alive on the team. When you get down to there's only one teammate, then that grid locks in. That means if Doctor Strange came up and was to die, he would lose access to all of his 8 energy power cards. But now that he gets to bring leader up again, he gets to cement that 8. And at this point in the game, there's probably not going to be enough damage done to get through a character and Doctor Strange.
Nick's trying to decide what to do with that one intellect power card attack.
He's probably in a situation where he can block it with the 7 and doesn't want to have to lose the venture. I think the only way Nick is pulling this game out is if he wins on venture. I think Ty has done so well at neutralizing the KO pressure being anything. But Ty's also on a ticking clock. If Ty doesn't kill one of Nick's characters soon, then that KO event's really just going to act like one hit from a card. So what Ty's really hoping he can do here is take out the Star Jammers, then draw that KO event, knock out the X Babies, and Nick's going to have to kill a second character. That's the ideal scenario that Ty's going for.
He definitely gets the most bang for his buck when he can get 2 for.
Keith, I'm interested what you think. So this is the first time I've seen somebody playing, post Dow, he's playing the battle site instead of the Any Heroes. Do you think he's still playing a 56 card deck? The Cadillac's traditionally been as lean as it can possibly be, or do you think that he's playing a more fat deck because he has to make room for those activators?
A lot of times it depends how thin he has the Muir Island. I was actually thinking that this is the first time I don't know, this may have been the first time he's playing this in a tournament. That's not the Any Hero version that he won 2 tournaments in a row with. I mean, if he's got 13 to 15 activators in there, it's going to be a little heavier because most of the time there's only going to be 9 or 10 of the Any Heroes. So it might be a little bit bigger than he's used to.
So Ty does manage to get that ally through. Nick has run out of defense. Ty has managed to kill the Star Jammers. So Ty's still got a lot of cards in that draw pile, but if he draws that KO event next, that is going to put Nick really on his heels. And the other disadvantage too, Nick did not get that draw 3 off, so that placing slot on Spartan Training Ground is clogged up for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's a double whammy for Nick.
All right. So for those of you who don't know, Keith Bursack, very good friend of mine for very many years now. one of my best friends, also with me, one of the co-founders of BMG. So it's an extra pleasure to get to do this commentary with him. I'm very excited to do the next few matches with him.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I'm also very excited to be able to hop on and join you guys.
Keith, I was telling them earlier that one of my favorite parts of Overpower is the community stuff that stretches to our relationships that aren't just playing the game. And I was telling them the story of when we went to the Bordeborg place and everybody had to get across the pit and you did the diving leap and we all caught you and pulled you onto the platform and hit the button. And that's even though that's not playing the game, it's still probably one of my favorite Overpower related memories.
Yeah, me too. I just remember jumping and like, oh man, we didn't even talk about that ahead of time or anything like that. It's just
No.
like, I got to get across. I'm just jumping, and you were like, come on, I got you. Yeah, that was great.
It really was. It was like something out of a Spider-Man comic. I just couldn't believe,
Yeah.
I couldn't believe we caught you and pulled you up onto that deck.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
Keith,
so
to give some information to Keith, right now the Nick and Ty are both tied 3-3, so 3 games won, 3 losses. So this might be important. That's going to be an important game for either
this is
one of
only
them.
round. I thought this was only round 6. Are you sure they're 3-3 or are they 3-2? Oh, no, this is
We're at round 7.
I don't know. Are we
This
at
is round 7, Joe. Round 7.
I mean, I'm going to trust you because you're looking at numbers, but I really thought this was 6.
I have the screen open here. We're on round 7. And after this, Doug said that there's going to be the dinner break.
I see Nick had to discard the Raza special.
Yeah, and Nick had to go 1 and run. So now this is what's devastating is we know that KO event's going to come up this hand. Ty is 100% still in his deck. And there it is. We knew that was coming. He's going to kill the X babies. We know that's what's coming. Ty chooses to get rid of Scarlet Witch or no? No, he got rid of Doctor Strange. So he still got Scarlet Witch. Yeah, Nick, there's only 5 minutes left, and with the way that the venture is, I think Nick's going to have a pretty tough time pulling this one out.
Yeah. Well, it looks like that Ty can bet 3 for the win. I mean, I don't think he needs to because Nick is what, 4 or 5 in the bottom, 3 or 4 in the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, Ty's in a position where I think Ty just needs to lean on him now. If I was Ty, I would bet 1, try to just win it so Nick gets another one in the bottom, and then mathematically, if you go to last hand because of time, at that point, I don't think there's any play Nick's going to be able to make to come back. Ty's managed to get that early venture lead and just hold on to it. So what are you? I want to hear your opinion, Keith. I was saying when I was solo on here, my strategy against Cadillac decks that I've found over the years, I always just try to make them fight those first couple of hands. I've found that they want to place that defensive shell, and just get you to like try to delay a few hands so they have that card advantage. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's one of the best ways to attack the Cadillac is to make them fight the early battles, try to get some hits on star jammers. I mean, that's always the goal is to try to see if you can get them out before they can get those 3, 4 big 1 protects.
So I'm a little surprised here. I mean, it worked out. Ty did go 3 for the win. So Ty has Twisted Mentality. I believe that's the name of that card. That card makes it so all attacks have to go against leader for the rest of the battle, and I believe leader's inherent gives him a +2 to defense while that's in play. So that means every power card that leader blocks with is going to get a +2 bonus. That surprises me. I mean, I guess there's probably not a lot of other good specials coming, but
yeah, I mean, because you don't want to save it for the 7, the X baby's 7.
I think maybe that's just Keith's idea. Keith's side. Maybe that's Nick's idea. Is Nick might be trying to throw an attack over the top and just see if he can knock Beyonder out while he's got a placed card on him.
So an update on the bracket: Scott Flint won his match. He's 7-0 in this tournament.
Wow, 7-0 for Scott. I mean, Scott was talking a lot of smack online to Marcel and some of the other players, and it's been it is really fantastic to see him hold that up. I love seeing a returning player do so well at one of the tournaments.
Yeah.
Marcel's currently 4-2, and his game against Greg Costa is still ongoing.
So Greg could knock the GOAT out of the tournament here if he makes Marcel go 4-3. Do we know what Greg's record is?
One moment.
So that's a big play.
4-2.
Spawn throws the 7. Beyonder has the avoid and draw, and there's the handshake. Yeah, Nick just couldn't overcome. Ty, that's just Tyler's like Novocaine. It's it might take a while, but it's always gonna work.
Right.
Greg Costa's 4-2, so is Marcel, so it's going to be an important game for either one.
All right, so
What was the final, Joe? Do we know what the final turnout was? How many participants in the tournament?
27.
27. Huh?
27 is fantastic when you also consider that a lot of marquee players. I would have been number 28. I obviously am jumping onto the commentary because if you can't tell, I unfortunately ended up with a pretty bad cold the last few days. And Keith had prior engagements, and Sean Sawyer has been on a trip in China with his in-laws. Steve Costa is somebody who almost goes to every tournament. He's got a baby and a very young kid, so he's been having to go to only about half the events now. So getting 27 people when 4 or 5 main players couldn't show up is a huge accomplishment. I know the Buffalo crew, unfortunately our good friend Ed Kowalski passed away a couple of years ago, but I know Ed owned an RV and would consistently do a huge RV carpool to bring a lot of those players, and I know that's been a little bit of a struggle getting to some of the events since his unfortunate passing. So the idea that we've been able to rebuild this community to tournaments that are coming up on the biggest numbers we've had since the game was officially on shelves, I think that's a real testament to how welcoming of a community we have, the decisions that have been made by BMG to balance the environment. All right. Well, what did you say, Keith? I didn't hear I can hear you now. I didn't hear your response to that.
No, I didn't hear your whole question. I'm sorry. I just heard
It
you.
was a question. I was just saying that, I think it's a real testament to the community that we're getting 27 to 30 players per event when one entire region is essentially having a hard time getting to events, and 4 to 5 marquee players couldn't make it. And there's a very realistic possibility that we see 35 to 40 players at the OP Cup next year.
Yeah, like I'm Dave. Dave and Nicola Bentley. Nicola had she was recently ordained, and she's performing a wedding for her nephew, I believe.
Oh wow! So Dave and Nicola aren't there? Phil's done a great job. Phil, I believe, pulled. I think he pulled 6 players in for that Learn to Play. So between both of the Sims playing and Miles Head coming back, I know Eric counts as there. Eric's a fantastic player. I had the pleasure of playing Eric in OKC in the Swiss and playing him in the first round of the playoffs in Oklahoma. He's